Potential home buyers in the GTA take a pause. The latest data from the Toronto Regional Real Estate Board showing condo and home sales took a dip last month. Good afternoon. It seems many decided to stay on the sidelines in June and avoid the housing market.
That's despite the Bank of Canada cutting interest rates. CTV's Mike Walker is live in North York this afternoon to bring us the details. Mike.
Well, Michelle, Nathan, those potential buyers tell us it's all about affordability. They say the interest rates are still too high. Experts say potential buyers are waiting for multiple rate cuts before entering the market.
More and more homes are being listed on the market, but potential buyers are remaining on the sidelines despite the central bank cutting rates last month.
For the time being, I feel like I'm going to continue renting because the living cost is just too high.
Yes, the interest rates have come down a little, but they're still substantially higher than they have been.
Last month, the central bank cut the key lending rate by 25 basis points. But housing sales across the GTA fell in June. According to the Toronto Regional Real Estate Board, 6,200 homes exchanged hands in June, but that is down by 16% from the same time last year.
While 25 basis points is a good start, in reality, a lot of these households on the sidelines need to see 100, 200 basis points to see them move back into the market. It's just an affordability equation.
Condo sales down even more, a staggering 28%.
One of the key drivers of that is first-time buying activity. So people moving from, say, rental accommodation and into home ownership. We have a lot of renters that say, we can't really bear any more in terms of rent increase before we take a closer look at purchasing a home.
The average home price in the GTA last month was just over $1.1 million, only down 1.6%. A recent Ipsos poll for Trev found that home buyers are waiting for multiple rate cuts before entering the market.
We're really looking towards the end of 2025 before we start to get there.
Now, data also shows that new listings increased by more than 12% last month compared to the same time last year. The Bank of Canada's next interest rate announcement will be later this month. Reporting live, I'm Mike Walker. Nathan, back to you.
Thank you, Mike. Still to come, only hours left if you need to stock your shelves. An LCBO strike deadline is fast approaching that could see stores shut down and staff walk the picket lines. We have the latest coming up a little later in the newscast.
But first, let's take a live look outside. Another hot and humid day in store. We've got some sunshine, which is really nice, but also the potential for some showers, maybe a thunderstorm. Let's check in with Jessica Smith with a look at the current conditions. Hopefully, it doesn't happen.
We are mostly looking at cloud cover into the afternoon, but that chance of rain, that threat of thunderstorms isn't going anywhere because we have, again, that right recipe. It is so humid outside. Even if you were up early on this morning, you could really feel it. Now, we're not looking at a ton in the way of any cloud cover currently, but as we head throughout the day, we'll see that start to increase. The chance of showers is this afternoon, but likely to stay a little further north of the downtown core and the majority of the GTA. Temperature-wise, we're kind of in the mid-20s already, feeling into the mid-30s, and it only gets hotter as we head into that second half of our day. Right now through Pearson, the island, a little cooler towards the island, but overall it is sticky out there. Coming up, your full forecast right now. Back to Nathan and Michelle.
All right, thank you, Jess. One person's been killed in an overnight crash on the Gardiner. It happened at around 2 in the morning in the eastbound lanes near Dufferin. Police say a woman and child in the vehicle that was struck were also taken to hospital. The driver, who's alleged to have caused the crash, left the scene but has since been arrested.
Police in York Region are sharing dramatic footage of a suspected truck arson spree in Vaughan this week. This is surveillance video from 11:50 p.m. on Monday at an industrial yard near Highway 27 and the 407. A suspect can be seen running between a number of parked dump trucks and setting their cabs on fire. Emergency crews found a total of 6 trucks ablaze when they arrived and put out the flames. Fortunately, no injuries reported. Now police are hoping to speak with any potential witnesses or anyone with video footage of that area around the time of the incident.
And one person has been sent to hospital after a fire in a downtown high-rise. Now, crews are on the scene here, and you can see that there were no flames visible, but eventually firefighters were able to put it out, just some smoke that was billowing from there. We'll give you more details on this at 6 tonight.
In Mississauga, police say a mother and her child are physically unharmed after they were the victims of a carjacking yesterday evening. This happened just before 7 p.m. Peel police say they were called to the incident at Britannia Road West and Silken Lauman Way, not far from Mavis Road. They say 3 suspects approached a woman and her child as they were getting into their white BMW. 2 suspects then took the car, while the third departed in a white sedan. Police are now searching for those 2 vehicles.
I understand that this is a disturbing event for our community, and we would just want to ensure to our community that we are working our best to determine what happened during the incident, and we are trying to figure out who were those suspects. If anyone has information who were in that area or may have a dash cam footage or he may have seen something or heard something, we encourage you to contact us.
Anyone who wants to stay anonymous can contact Crime Stoppers. We'll have more on this story later today on CTV News at 5, as well as CTV News at 6.
A plainclothes officer with Toronto's police drug squad is facing several charges, including impaired driving and possession of illegal drugs for trafficking following an incident in Mississauga. Peel police say they responded to a call for an erratic driver near Hurontario and Courtney Park Drive at around 2 in the morning. They took 37-year-old Brian Sukram into custody following an incident which saw 2 Peel officers suffer minor injuries and multiple cruisers damaged. Sukram, a 13-year veteran of the Toronto Police Service, is facing a number of charges, including dangerous operation, failure to stop after an accident, operation while impaired, possession of methamphetamines for the purpose of trafficking, and possession of cocaine for the purpose of trafficking. Toronto police confirmed Sukram's arrest and say he has been suspended with pay. Both the city and province are calling on Ottawa to help keep the TTC on the rail.
They're asking the feds to chip in with funding to replace the aging fleet operating on Line 2. CTV's Queen's Park Bureau Chief Siobhan Morris reports.
The final stop is in sight for aging cars on the TTC's Line 2. They'll start to reach the end of their 30-year service life in 2026.
We really need the federal government to step up and come to the table and to start with the procurement of these vehicles.
The province and city each earmarked $758 million to buy dozens of new trains as part of the New Deal for Toronto. Money from Ottawa is the missing piece.
At this point, we all need to be screaming. It's going to take everybody's effort or we're not going to have these cars.
The Premier and head of Unifor joined up to call on the federal government to secure a smooth ride and manufacturing jobs.
We've got 2 new lines coming in that will use these cars, the Scarborough subway extension, the Yonge North subway extension, both critical to transit over the next 10 years.
The federal NDP leaning on the Prime Minister, hoping a recent by-election loss in Toronto sends a message.
He can't continue to take the people of Toronto for granted, and he can't take Northern Ontario for granted. We need these jobs. These are really important jobs in the Thunder Bay region.
The outgoing TTC CEO has expressed frustration with how slowly the funding and procurement process has been chugging along.
I think it's very serious. You know, we've seen what happens when you extend the life of vehicles, for instance, beyond their useful life.
Last summer's derailment on the Scarborough RT is a cautionary tale. The incident that led to the early shutdown of the line caused by broken and loose bolts. But Leary stressed that was hardly the only problem.
There were a lot of failures, leaving people on board. We saw ridership go down because of it. You know, we don't want to have that type of system happen in Line 2.
In a statement to CTV News, the federal government says they're collaborating with the TTC and Toronto to meet their transit needs, but they wouldn't comment on specific funding decisions. At Queen's Park, Siobhan Morris, CTV News.
The cost of 2 new electric ferries to serve the Toronto Islands has ballooned to $92 million. The new price tag was confirmed by city staff at a committee meeting earlier this week. The contract is set to be awarded to Damon Shipyards Galati, who will build the ferries in Romania. The new vessels are to be delivered in late 2026 and early 2027. The current ferries are between 60 and 114 years old and are far beyond the average lifespan.
Pro-Palestinian demonstrators who camped on the University of Toronto campus for months left yesterday ahead of a court-ordered deadline. Demonstrators left the encampment they'd occupied since May 2nd, immediately marching in a protest that blocked traffic on College and Bloor before stopping in front of the Israeli consulate. Participants said they didn't want to risk any kind of conflict with police, who said they were drawing up plans to enforce the order as needed. Demonstrators have been pushing for changes in the school's policy on divestment from Israel. A judge found the encampment deprived the university of control of its private property. Well, time's running out for a deal to be reached between the LCBO and union workers as a potential strike looms.
If an agreement isn't made today, stores will close for 2 weeks, leading many to stock up on supplies as we speak. CTV's John Musselman has been following this story, and he brings us the very latest in the details. Wonder how negotiations are going, John.
Well, Michelle, our understanding is they are still talking, but as you mentioned, we're now less than 12 hours away from a possible strike unless they extend the talks. This may be your last chance to stock up at the LCBO. We are now just hours away from a possible strike.
I read the news of July 5th, and we have a cottage trip this weekend, so we're just stocking up on alcohol for this weekend.
OPSEU, the union representing 10,000 workers, will be in a legal strike position at midnight. In a statement released today, a spokesperson for the finance minister's office writes, quote, well, we hope OPSEU puts consumers first by working constructively at the negotiating table towards a deal. We have never been more committed than we are now to delivering on our promise to deliver more choice and convenience with beer, cider, wine, and ready-to-drink beverages in convenience, grocery, and big box stores.
There's lots of local breweries in the area, like Left Field just opened, and you can get beer to go. So there's definitely options for people.
LCBO does a good job as it stands, and those people need work.
Here's a look at how the LCBO plans to deal with the strike. Retail locations will close for a period of 14 days on Friday, July 19th. After the 14 days, 30 LCBO stores will open, but they will have limited hours. The union responded saying that, quote, despite the employer's consistent unwillingness to bargain meaningfully, this plan is a dramatic and heavy-handed move at a time when both sides should be working hard to reach an agreement. The union says it's fighting for higher wages, more full-time positions, and it opposes the expansion of alcohol sales at more retail locations. It's been pretty busy at this location in Etobicoke. We can tell you that negotiations do continue at this hour, so we don't know if there'll be a strike. But again, the deadline is at midnight. Reporting live, I'm John Musselman. I'll send it back to you.
All right, thank you, John. 2/3 of Canadians believe Prime Minister Justin Trudeau will not step down before the next election. That's according to a recent Leger poll. The latest, the next election can happen is the fall of 2025. 1 out of every 3 people surveyed think Trudeau will step down before the end of this year, with many of those thinking it'll happen by Labor Day. Just 25% of those who took the poll believe Trudeau is doing a good job as Prime Minister. The online poll cannot be assigned a margin of error.
British voters are going to the polls today in a parliamentary election that is widely expected to bring a change in government. Ballots are being cast to select 650 lawmakers who will sit in Parliament for the next 5 years. The governing Conservatives are expected to lose the Labour Party, which is the main opposition group. The Conservatives have held power for 14 years under 5 different prime ministers. They've been struggling to reassure voters about issues such as the rising cost of living and the state of the UK's healthcare system. And CTV's Mike Lecouteur is in London for us. Mike, set the scene for us today. Rishi Sunak gambled with an early election. How's that move looking at this point?
Yeah, it seems like that gamble isn't paying off at all, especially when you consider that there was a gambling scandal with him calling the election with members of his inner circle and even his security detail who were caught up in that betting on the actual election day. Certainly what we are feeling here is a sense of change. People on the streets of London that we have spoken to have saying that, look, we don't really like any one of the leaders and any one of the parties that are offering right now, but certainly they don't like the leader of the Conservatives and the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, right now. So it sounds like it will be a landslide for Labour. Now, it's unclear exactly when we will get the definitive word on that. And Michelle, that's because the polls close here at 10 p.m. The first results are supposed to trickle in at about 11 p.m. And then the actual results will come in at around 2 a.m. But a lot of Brits that we spoke to say they're either going to be staying up or getting up early to find out whether or not Keir Starmer will be their next Prime Minister, and a number of people hoping that is the case.
Well, you just said you spoke to voters today. Talk to us about the issues they're talking to you about. What's at play in this election?
Yeah, it's remarkably similar to what we see over in Canada, where you consider that it is the cost of living crisis, inflation, and how people are dealing with that, and they're feeling like the Conservatives are just out of ideas and not really getting it under control. Then, of course, there is the state of the healthcare system here as well. Access to healthcare is an issue. Immigration, another issue here as well. But really, Michelle, it's fatigue that voters have with the governing party. They've been in power for 14 years. And again, that similarity that we've seen to Canada, where it seems like we are setting up for a change election in 2025. That is certainly what we are seeing here in the UK, with Brits going possibly overwhelmingly, and I say overwhelmingly because, as you had mentioned, you need 326 seats to form a majority. There are some projections that are putting them at north of 400 seats, which would be a huge majority, the likes of which we hadn't seen since Tony Blair got elected in 1997 here.
Well, if the UK is, as you say, poised for a big shift, what would a Labour government mean for domestic and foreign policy?
Yeah, it would be pulling them a little more towards the left of center, but at the same time, Keir Starmer has tried to really reject those far left candidates and elements of his party. So certainly looking to be a little more progressive. What it might mean on the international scene is unclear at this point, because a lot of Brits are saying essentially that they don't expect anything to change, even though that there would be a change of government. But certainly Starmer has signaled that he would like to bring like to tackle all of the inflation crisis and the cost of living crisis. Rishi Sunak, the Conservative leader, has said, look, that might also mean higher taxes, but it's unclear right now, because what we had seen from Starmer is his response to that was he wants to make the tax system fair, and that is what he'll be doing. Either way, Brits seem that they're ready for it, and they're ready to go in that different direction.
Well, we sure appreciate you breaking it all down for us. CTV's Mike LeCoutel live across the pond today on Election Day in the UK. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hurricane Beryl drenched the Cayman Islands today after pummeling Jamaica. One person died when the Category 4 storm made landfall. Beryl's eye wall skirted Jamaica's southern coast, causing flooding and power outages. The island streets were mostly empty after the Prime Minister issued a curfew. The government also opened about 120 storm shelters. The now Category 3 storm moved away from Jamaica early today, later soaking the Cayman Islands and bringing heavy winds. Mexico's Cancun and the wider Yucatan Peninsula are also in Beryl's predicted path. And CTV's Scott Hurst has been following this path. Scott, what can we expect from this hurricane throughout the rest of the day?
Nathan, of course, we've been following this for many days now as it have made its way to a powerful Category 5, hitting Jamaica as a Category 3, and now lashing the Cayman Islands as a Category 3, hitting Jamaica as a powerful Category 4. Now a Category 3 with Mexico in its sights, and particularly the Yucatan Peninsula, and that includes some popular tourist destinations like Cancun and nearby Belize. So it'll still hit that part of Mexico, the Yucatan Peninsula, with hurricane force. It'll lose strength as it goes over that landmass, but then once again, when it gets back out to open water, it's expected to regain a hurricane strength before it then makes landfall on the Mexican mainland, and even the track of this storm could impact the most southern tip of Texas. And so they're preparing in southern U.S. and the mainland of Mexico, but first and foremost, most notably, the Yucatan Peninsula and some popular tourist destinations there as well.
And what do we know, Scott, about the extent of the damage?
Well, we've been mentioning the extent of the damage through many of these small island nations through the Caribbean, and it is quite widespread. Now, last night and into this morning, it was really Jamaica that took the brunt of this storm, and particularly the south coast of that island nation bearing the brunt of Hurricane Beryl's wrath, with heavy rain and strong winds. And the destruction, particularly through the southern coast, is widespread from this punishing storm, knocking out power to many areas and many communities and ripping roofs off homes and businesses and flooding low-lying areas. As the storm approached, We heard from the Prime Minister that there was a curfew in place, and also before the storm even approached, declaring a 7-day state of emergency, a 7-day disaster zone for the entire nation. And we heard from a Canadian couple on their honeymoon in Jamaica. They couldn't get out in time before the storm hit, so they had to ride it out. Here's more of what they had to say about their experience.
We didn't know what to expect coming into this whole thing, and it's been emotional, scary, tense, and behind us right now, we're seeing the worst of what we've seen so far. There's trees falling. We're hearing big bangs, and we're assuming there's maybe roofs get. We don't know what's happening out there because we can't see it all. But it's not a pretty sight.
Nathan, that couple went on to say they were staying at a resort, and what the resort did was empty out the first floor of the building, the first floor of the resort, for fear of flooding, and empty out the third floor, the top floor, for fear of what could happen to the roof. So this couple and everyone else were staying on the second floor as they went through and rode out this storm. But as they said, emotional, scary, and quite tense for them and so many other people in Jamaica, and now for so many people on the Yucatan Peninsula.
All right, CTV's Scott Hurst with the latest on Hurricane Beryl. Thank you.
Thanks, Nathan.
Over in the Middle East, an Israeli delegation has been sent to negotiate a hostage release deal with Hamas. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will convene his security cabinet today to discuss new Hamas positions on a possible ceasefire deal. He will also reportedly speak with U.S. President Joe Biden. Israel received Hamas's response yesterday to a plan made public by Biden in May. Hamas has said any deal must end the war with all Israeli troops leaving Gaza. Israel insists it will accept only temporary pauses in the fighting until Hamas is eradicated. The Gaza Health Ministry now says more than 38,000 Palestinians have been killed since the Israeli military offensive began. It followed a deadly Hamas-led attack in southern Israel on October 7th.
Hezbollah launched a large rocket and drone attack at Israel today. Hezbollah said it launched more than 200 rockets and a swarm of drones at 10 Israeli military sites. The Iran-backed group says it was in retaliation for the killing of a top commander. Israel says a number of the projectiles from Lebanese territory were intercepted by its air defenses and fighter jets. The conflict between Hezbollah and Israel has been gradually intensifying for months, but both sides have indicated they want to avoid a full-scale war.
Back here at home, some Toronto residents are sounding the alarm, saying the city has a rat problem.
And now a pair of city councilors are pushing for a strategy to deal with the rise in the rodent population. CTV's Beth McDonnell has more details. Beth.
Nathan, there's certainly an ick factor when it comes to rats. They can also carry disease and cause damage to infrastructure and wiring. And now 2 Toronto councillors want to deal with the rats.
Okay, so all in favor, all opposed, that carries.
And with that, the city is embarking on the beginnings of a possible rats reduction strategy. Some councillors saying the shakes from construction disturbing rodents has led to a problem.
We don't have a system right now in Toronto to respond to the presence of rats on public properties. And the pickup of dead rats isn't permitted by Toronto Animal Services. That's putting people in a really difficult position, whether you're a resident or a small business. There's problems of poor building maintenance, and then the damage to infrastructure they can cause includes breaking down clay pipes, electrical systems, vehicle engines, and massive breeding can contribute to sinkholes.
Councillors Alejandra Bravo and Amber Morley moving a motion to look at coming up with a strategy in 2025 and follow the lead of several other major North American cities. Orkin Canada says when there is construction, calls for help to the pest company increase. Prevention, like using traps, is one consideration, but it says any strategy must go beyond construction.
What's happening with homeless camps or protest camps? What's happening with residents that leave garbage bags out for 2-3 days prior to pickup? What about businesses that have overflowing garbage dumpsters? What about, sanitation around the city? There's lots of things to consider. It's not just construction.
Councillors say Ottawa and Peel Region are putting in programs, and Toronto should have one too. And Orkin Canada says those traps could be used as a preventative method when it comes to construction around the city to stop those rats from spreading. Reporting live, I'm Beth McDonnell. Michelle, Nathan, back to you.
Taking a closer look at Hurricane Beryl as it makes its way towards Mexico, it continues to have a significant impact. And with these systems, if you're near the eye wall of the storm, it is where it is the most dangerous, with those winds still sustained at about 185 kilometers an hour. It will lose some of its steam as it makes landfall, but we'll keep updating everybody on this. Here at home, a significantly different story. Dry for the most part today, but there is a slight chance of a thunderstorm. Coming up, I'll have a full look at your long-range forecast and let you know how long the heat is sticking around.
Well, it feels like we're really in the swing of things when it comes to this summer. It is hot, it is humid. This is kind of what I guess you've got to expect now.
You know what? I'm leaning in. I kind of like it. I think in the morning, because you don't have the real oppressive stuff, it's kind of nice to walk out and it's just warm. You get sort of nervous in these afternoon hours where if you're outside for prolonged periods, it can be oppressive.
It can, and we have to think about heat exhaustion and heat stress because it can sneak up on you. You know, you feel fine until you don't. So hydration, breaks in the shade, checking in on each other is really important, and your pets as well. I know some are more sensitive to this than others, and same with children. You have to really be conscious of heat exhaustion and heat stroke. We have another really high humidex value today, so keep that into consideration if you want to spend some time outdoors. Weather is brought to you by the Presler Law Firm. Injury lawyers, you don't pay unless they win. Now, we've seen a decent amount of sunshine to get the day started, but we will see the cloud cover start to increase as we head into the afternoon. The potential for rain, thunderstorms is there because we have this heat, this humidity, still dealing with a bit of a cold front making its way across the southern portion of the province. But it does not guarantee that we are going to see rain, and likely whatever does come will be kind of north of us. For now, though, it is just a little cloudy out there, some sun still peeking through, and it's really humid. We are feeling like 34 here in the city with temperatures at 27. Even portions of northern Ontario kind of holding on to a little bit of warmth, but really central and southern portions of the province being impacted by this heat. As we head in towards the afternoon, another day right around 29, it'll feel like 35, and really it's almost the same right across the board. We're holding on to this kind of sticky feeling as we head throughout the day today. Tonight, rinse and repeat from last night, again sitting at about 19. We should be at 16 with just a few light clouds out there. We're watching for the potential of some showers to push their way across. A very busy map. We have a lot going on across the province. But as we head throughout the afternoon and evening, that cold front that kind of sinks its way down, that brings the potential for the messy weather, but a lot of it is on the kind of north side of that system. So as we get through the rest of our day, it's really not that bad. Again, it's north and east of the city where we're looking for the potential of maybe some pop-up showers. But because it's kind of in the vicinity, we are also included in that when you see that, 30-40% on your, 7-day forecast on your app, per se, on your phone or on our website. But if you head into the evening, again, the bulk of that chance of active weather is just kind of north and east of the city, and then it's just some cloud cover before it clears out overnight. And kicking off our day tomorrow, pretty nice. It's hot, it's humid. We'll see a decent amount of sunshine, pop-up showers up towards areas through Peterborough, Bancroft, and the bulk of the active weather to round out the day tomorrow is between London and Owen Sound. As we step through the overnight and into the start of the day Saturday, there's the chance, again, we could see some shower activity, but very spotty in nature, and likely into the north and kind of west end of the GTA. Temperature-wise, it's just hot. There's no other way to put it. It's just really warm out there, and then you factor in the humidex and it feels even warmer. Still feeling into the mid-30s today, tomorrow, into the weekend. The chance of showers lingers, but we're likely to see it very spotty in nature, closer to seasonal for your Saturday. And looking ahead to next week, it's not bad. We're settling into July in a very summery way. I'll send things back to Nathan and Michelle.
Love that. Thank you, Jess. Well, we're getting a better sense of the kind of destruction Hurricane Beryl has brought to the Caribbean. This is footage from the Agency of Public Information in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. You can see devastation on the islands. The Prime Minister has indicated it could take years to rebuild. Grenada and Jamaica have also been hit hard, and relief efforts are being organized. We bring in now Morgan Clark, a Senior Emergency Programs Officer at Global Medic. Morgan, great to have you with us. I know your teams are very tapped in. What are you hearing in regards to the damage out that way so far?
Yeah, so we have extensive work and partnership networks in the Caribbean, and all of these organizations have been reaching out to us in the past couple days. The damage is pretty much immeasurable right now. In Grenada, in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, in Jamaica, the main damage right now is in terms of structures, so people have been displaced. And when you're displaced after a hurricane like this, you have absolutely nothing left in your possession. So people are in need of clean water, they're in need of food, they're in need of all those basic supplies that we tend to take for granted when we have our homes standing.
Well, your team is an expert when it comes to getting those kind of supplies. So let's talk about what is needed at this point and how do you get that relief to those areas most in need?
Yeah, so the primary things that are needed right now, like I said, are clean water and access to food. These are basic human necessities that we need. And so we're working with partners on the ground. We have offered our prepackaged, prepositioned food kits, as well as our family water purification units to all of our partners on the ground. So we're on standby right now, working with logistics organizations and partners on the ground to be able to get those down to the communities that have been affected. We're also working with partners to offer our large community-sized water purification units. These could be installed in feeding kitchens, in community shelters, things like that, where there's larger populations. And then we're also working with partners to get emergency tenting on the ground. So these things can be used for emergency shelters, can be used again to house community kitchens, and can really be used for important infrastructure after hurricanes like this.
Well, certainly there are people here in Toronto who have relatives in the Caribbean. It's certainly a concerning time, especially because we don't have the full picture at this point. What can people do if they're just feeling this urge to help?
Yeah, absolutely. So the biggest thing that organizations like Global Medic need are donations and funding to help these programs run. So we currently have a Hurricane Barrel Fund on our website, and if people have the financial liability, we would love for them to be able to donate financially. The second thing is being able to volunteer their time. So we actually have volunteer shifts in the next couple of days that we're going to help pack additional aid for our response. So volunteers can sign up on our website and can come out and help with that aid. And then the third thing, if you're not able to donate either money or time, the big thing is just sharing the message. So we're really active on our social medias, our website. You can share that message with your friends, your family, your networks to be able to get our work out to people who may not know about it.
Well, it's wonderful that your team is working hard on this matter. Morgan Clark, appreciate your time. She's a Senior Emergency Programs Officer at Global Medic. Good luck with everything. Take care.
Thanks so much.
A former NFL star is tackling an important health issue directed at Canadian men.
Laurent Duvernay-Tardif is now a medical doctor, and as CTV's health reporter Pauline Chan reports, he's using his platform to promote HPV awareness.
I actually recently got the vaccine a couple of years ago.
Former NFL star Laurent Duvernay-Tardif retired from football last year, but he's not out of the spotlight.
Well, you know, when you look at the number, HPV is actually the most common sexually transmitted infection. I think it's like 75% of Canadians at some point in their life are going to have an infection with HPV.
But a vaccine first offered to school-age girls in 2008, then to boys as well in 2016, has become a first line of defense against the human papillomavirus. HPV can lead to cervical cancer in women, but men can also suffer cancers of the head and neck because of HPV, as well as penile and anal cancers. But a recent study shows only half as many men know about the consequences of HPV infection as women.
Oropharyngeal cancer is cancer of the back of the throat. So this is cancer of the tonsils, the back of the tongue, and the palate. And historically, this is quite uncommon and typically associated with smoking.
Over the past few decades, there has been a striking rise in these cancers, especially in men.
Vaccines are probably the single most effective way we have of preventing this sort of cancer.
But while adults can get the vaccine, the problem is that many Canadian adults have already been exposed to the virus, and so the vaccine won't have an effect on those people.
And this is further compounded by the fact that there's no real screening tests for cancers in the oral pharynx.
That's why Duvernay-Tardif says education of men is so important.
To me, it's a public health concern right now, and we need to educate people about it.
They add that dentists, who deal so much with the mouth and throat, are often the first ones to spot developing cancers. Pauline Chan, CTV News.
The province is making changes it says will expand pathways for newcomers seeking work in the healthcare field. The Ontario Immigrant Nominee Program helps certain immigrants stay in the country if they have the skills and experience the economy needs. The province says it will now exempt nurses from having to provide a bachelor's degree when applying. Instead, they'll be able to register in designated classes. More healthcare occupations will also be eligible for a stream linked to employer job offers for those with in-demand skills.
Toronto's oldest running cinema is getting some high-profile help in its fight to keep the doors open. The Review Cinema has been Roncesvalles' landmark for more than a century. Last week, the not-for-profit, which runs the cinema, said it was having trouble securing a lease renewal. The tenants say there was a disagreement with the landlords over repairs and a rent increase. A court injunction means a closure has been prevented for now, but director Guillermo del Toro is using his voice to call for urgent action. He posted on social media, tagging the mayor and other officials, saying, "Can you help save the Review, one of Canada's most beloved non-profit cultural landmarks? If not you, who can help, or how can I help?" Del Toro also linked to a petition to save the Review at change.org, noting it's already exceeded 20,000 signatures.
Ellen DeGeneres has canceled several dates on what she's been calling her final stand-up tour. The comedian and former talk show host has been planning stops in several cities across North America. Rolling Stone reports tour dates have now been called off in Dallas, San Francisco, Seattle, and Chicago. No reason's been given for the cancellations, and Live Nation has not commented. DeGeneres is still set to bring her show to Toronto's Meridian Hall August 5th. Still to come, imagine bringing home a bag of grapes and finding a deadly spider inside. That's what happened to an Oakville woman. Pat Foran has her story when we return.
Get Toronto's top stories, breaking news alerts, and watch live. Download the CTV News app.
Canada has given the green light to a digital services tax on large foreign tech companies.
That's despite the threat of retaliation from the United States. BNN Bloomberg's Paul Bagnall has more.
The federal government has authorized the implementation of a new digital services tax on large foreign technology companies, despite warnings of trade retaliation from the U.S. It's a 3% levy on the digital services revenue a company makes from Canadian users above a threshold of $20 million per year. And it will primarily hit big U.S. firms like Netflix, Alphabet, the parent of Google, and Meta Platforms, the company behind Facebook and Instagram. The price of crude oil slipped in morning trading to trade just below $84 per barrel, but that was still near two-month highs. Saudi Arabia cut its prices to Asian buyers for a second month. That was an indication that demand remains weak in that part of the world. Meanwhile, the threat of Hurricane Beryl is disrupting U.S. oil output in the Gulf of Mexico area. Shares of Royal Bank of Canada hit a record high of more than $149 per share this morning. The bank's stock has risen almost 12% so far this year. By contrast, shares of Toronto Dominion Bank, which could be hit with big penalties in the U.S. stemming from alleged poor controls on money laundering, are down 11% so far this year. From the BNN Bloomberg Newsroom in Toronto, I'm Paul Bagnall.
WestJet says there should only be some residual impacts today after the resolution of last weekend's strike. Aircraft maintenance workers walked off the job late Friday, and a tentative deal was announced Sunday night. WestJet says nearly 1,200 flights had to be canceled as a result of the strike, but its operations have stabilized since then. About 8 strike-related cancellations are still expected today, but none tomorrow.
Finding a black widow spider in Canada is uncommon, fortunately, but there is one species that migrated into British Columbia and another in southern Ontario.
Another way you might see the venomous spider is if it hitches a ride on fruits or vegetables coming from the southern U.S. or Mexico. CTV's Pat Foran has the story.
I'm just glad I didn't get bit. I'm glad my kids didn't get bit, or my parents, or, my husband.
Jeanette Guidi of Oakville says her family purchased grapes at a Walmart, and after putting them in the fridge, she later took them out for a snack.
Why is there so many webs on the grapes? And as I said it, I looked down into the sink and I could see the spider sort of fighting in the water.
Guidi says she was freaked out but managed to catch the black widow, which can have a venomous bite.
It took a lot of courage, but I was able to capture it. And when I got a good look at it, I was able to see the markings on the abdomen there, and I just couldn't even believe it. I was just in total shock.
So this is a Western black widow, pretty distinct. They've got a really large abdomen that's very shiny.
We stopped by the Toronto Zoo to speak with resident spider expert John Spiro. He says finding this type of spider in Ontario is extremely rare, but they occasionally show up in fruits shipped to Canada.
If one is found, it tends to come in on produce, which understandably would be a little concerning if it surprised you.
Spiro says if you're bitten by a black widow, it's generally not fatal, but it does hurt badly and you should seek hospital attention.
There would be a lot of pain that would be caused from the venom, and it can also cause muscle cramping and stomach cramping as well. It can also cause sweating and a fever.
Walmart told CTV News its quality assurance team is investigating how the black widow spider got shipped with the grapes. Guidi says she is relieved no one in her home got hurt, and for now, she still has the spider.
Right now, it's in this container and it's outside on our balcony and it's waiting for the next move.
Pat Foran, CTV News.
The Jays will try to split their series with the Astros today in an afternoon 4th of July game.
Off the glove of Guerrero and into right for a base hit.
Last night's game turned into a blowout. The game was tied at 2 in the 7th when the wheels fell off for our Jays. The bullpen could not contain the Astros, who scored 4 runs in the 7th and 3 more in the 8th. Bo Bichette was hit by a pitch in the 9th, but he also struck out at the same time. Houston won 9-2. They'll wrap up the series this afternoon just after 1 p.m.
Thank you, fans, for voting for me. I decided to play for you guys in the All-Star game.
But here's some good news. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. will be representing the Jays at this year's MLB All-Star Game. It will be the Sluggers' 4th straight appearance in the Midsummer Classic. He won last year's Home Run Derby, but says he will not be participating in this year's contest.
Toronto FC was looking to snap a 4-game losing streak when they took on the Orlando City last night.
He's up against Kyle Smith on the far side. Bernadeschi's ball clipped high in towards the back post. Petretta's headed down, and it's driven in by Derek Etienne Jr. And Toronto FC lead inside 5 minutes.
Toronto took an early lead, but Orlando did all the scoring after that. The visiting team ended up winning the game 2-1. TFC will be back on the pitch Saturday to play Columbus.
Coming up on CTV News, left searching for her family in the wake of the Holocaust, a Toronto woman finds a brother she never knew she had. A Toronto woman, adopted in 1947, met her brother for the first time after more than 7 decades.
The discovery is part of a journey to learn more about her birth parents. CTV spoke to her about what it means to uncover her family history.
I was in Warsaw and I managed to add an epilogue.
Eleanor Millman's book, The Secrets My Mother Kept, was meant to chronicle the search for her biological mother. Little did she know it would also chronicle the truth about her father. Born in a displaced persons camp shortly after the Second World War, Millman was adopted by a loving family on a kibbutz in Israel. Everything changed when she was 6 years old. A child told a group of kids some of them might not be with their real parents.
I felt like kind of a knife stab in my tummy. Some kind of a sense that he needs to tell us the truth. And I bugged him for 2 nights. And then he said, okay, it's you. Your parents are not your parents.
After years of questions and hard work, Millman eventually tracked down her mother in Montreal. She traveled there and spent a year getting to know her and 2 half-sisters, and came to learn her mother had been living a secret life to hide being Jewish. But her mother had almost no information about her father, except he played the violin and sang like her.
The name in Hebrew is that when you grow, you will know.
When Millman retired from teaching, she investigated her family history further. She wrote her story in Hebrew, then decided to provide a DNA saliva sample to MyHeritage. The sample didn't lead anywhere, but it caught the attention of the research team at MyHeritage. And just 3 months ago, Millman was invited to a meeting with the head of its team.
He told me that my father was a virtuous violinist and a singer, and this is what I was. I was a singer and I played violin. I burst into cry because this is
the best proof that there is no mistake.
Millman has 4 children and 10 grandchildren. The findings make her feel complete and mean she can finally share her family history. With her father's identity revealed, she's learned she has 2 more siblings and recently traveled to Poland to meet her brother. Millman says her story is a miracle.
Finally, I know who I am.
Such a great story.
I'm so happy for her. Is there a lot to like in the weather forecast today? That summer vibe.
I mean, if you like the heat and humidity, and I do, but I like it more so when I'm near a pool, on a patio. But nonetheless, it is a beautiful, albeit very humid day out there. So just prepare yourself and you can get out there and enjoy it safely. We're looking at some increasing cloud cover as we head into the afternoon. Not a ton in the way of active weather in the downtown core of the GTA, but we have the right ingredients for it. Temperature-wise, it is really hot. It feels like 34, so we're not quite in heat warning criteria, but it doesn't mean that it's not super hot out there. But if you want to get out and barbecue tonight, it'll be all right as long as you have some water or a beverage of sorts nearby.
All right, good advice. Thank you, Jess. And that is CTV News at noon. Remember, you can get Toronto's breaking news all day long on CP24 and at our website, ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Jessica Smith and the whole team here at CTV News, thank you for watching. Have a pleasant afternoon. I'm Michelle Dubé.
And I'm Nathan Downer. Be sure to join us later for CTV News at 5 and 6. Have a great day.